Cool. It is a pleasure to welcome to the show Bryan Moscow, a.k.a. the Guerilla Chemist on Instagram and the company. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Damon. I know it's been a long time coming and we've been in contact, so I'm really excited to do this show with you.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. First of all, I owe you an apology. This has never happened before, but we did this podcast about 6 months ago. And when I went in there to edit it, it cut out after 5 minutes. So we're on episode 130 something. I've never had a tech failure, so sorry about that. But the good news is we're going to have a great conversation today, and I'm excited for it. I'd love to get started by hearing your experience, your lacrosse goalie experience. I mean, do you remember the first time you jumped into goal?
I do. I got a late start because I grew up in South Florida. Lacrosse was not a big thing in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I started off as a hockey goalie, and my best friend played lacrosse. I had no idea what it was. His dad actually won a national championship at Roanoke in 76, I think. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, do you want to try out? Our JV team needs a goalie. It's like, sure, I'll do it. And I just remember first time stepping in, definitely was a little afraid of the ball because there's not the padding I had in hockey. Yeah. But everyone goes through that. And then you always remember the first time you get pinged. So like on the shin or something. So that was another experience. But I fell in love from day one as a goalie. And I'd never even thought about playing another position. It was strictly goalie.
Love it.
Which I know a lot of the people you have started off as other positions and had, had really good stick skills and played out and then got hopped in the goal, right?
Most people do, including myself. Yeah, I started as a midi, which usually helps, but I've had a couple stories where people are just like, I'm a goalie. I've always been a goalie, and they were goalie from a day one. So I've seen it both ways, but yeah, most of the time people start in the field, which I think helps you learn the stick skills and the defense and all the other stuff that really helps. But either way, coming from the ice hockey background, did you ever throw on some extra pads? Did you ever go it's so much easier just to make a save with my shoulder as opposed to trying to get my stick over there?
Yes. So we had my friend, where my best friend lived, I was talking about, we had this big open field behind his house, and we had a goal that we made. And the first time I got in there, I had my chest protector from hockey on with the big pads because I didn't know what to expect. Yeah. And so I definitely had the big shoulders, and getting hit there was a lot easier. And I don't know, I guess it's like a disadvantage, but I learned that to do that way. So even playing now in men's league and all throughout college, I make a lot of body saves that really probably should be stick saves. It's just from years of natural instinct to move up like this instead of, moving your stick.
Yeah. I mean, anything you can do to make a save is fine, right? We talk so much and analyze saves so much, but at the end of the day, we're chasing saves. We're not chasing perfection. So I posted a clip of the Maryland goalie just recently, a little reel. And, he's a smaller kid, and inside shot, and he just bam. I mean, that's all he does. He just moves a little bit and gets his shoulder on it. And that's what you got to do sometimes, right?
Exactly. So that's, I guess my hockey background, I think, helped me as a goalie for lacrosse, just from the instinct of moving to the ball. That was a very natural progression. I know a lot of people or goalies don't have that instinct to step to the ball.
Yeah.
But I think playing hockey helped me make that a natural progression. So I think, but to your point, stopping the ball is stopping the ball, right? So whatever you get in front of it it always counts. I had also kick saves. I was big on that because of hockey at first. Initially, when I was in high school, I got better at controlling it when I was in college, but it was just a habit, a natural instinct to kick at the ball just from hockey.
Interesting.
But it worked out.
Yeah. The other thing about ice hockey goalie is their technique for low saves is you drop in the butterfly so that your leg pads kind of shoot or parallel to the ground, but basically on the ground. Did you ever incorporate that style into your lacrosse goalie game?
100%. That was initially how I started, because in high school everybody kind of does bounce shots, right? That's what coaches teach you, put on the ground. So my natural instinct was to almost dive down with my knees. I did hit my knees on the ground a lot, going for saves. And so that was initially how I started. And then I learned, okay, I have to stand up too and do all these other techniques. But yes, initially it was basically how hockey goalies do the butterfly position, what you're talking about. I did that a lot at first.
And you see it, some goalies out there like who, like I sponsored one kid, Brett Dobson, who Canadian, grew up playing hockey, right? Still plays a lot of box goalie, but you know, he does that. Like, you know, he'll get down and spread out his knees when he goes down low, which, hey, it gives you more, covers more goals. So why not?
It does. And speaking of box, real quickly, since we last talked, I had my first box experience playing goalie, and it was just like playing hockey back in the day. Like I understand that they're not supposed to do a lot of moves. It's very this and this, but I was back in my old hockey mentality, and we played really well. We won. It was like a really good feeling to play because I've never done it before.
That's awesome. Yeah, I would say box goalie is way more similar to ice hockey goalie than it is to field lacrosse goalie. 100%. The other question I was going to ask regarding ice hockey. So ice hockey, like the shots always come from the ice, or I don't know,
Correct.
90, 95, 90, you know, a high percent. They're always coming from the ice. So you as an ice hockey goalie can just focus on that puck. But like as a field lacrosse goalie, the shots are coming from anywhere and any angle. I mean, almost 360 degrees these days. The kids can like wind up over here and then bring it across. Was that kind of a huge change for you, or how did you go about, you know, focusing on the shots in field lacrosse?
It was initially it was hard because I was so used to focusing really on one plane. Mm-hmm. And then my style was to go down a lot. So it took some coaching to help me to stand up for every shot because I was so used to going down for saves in hockey. But I had a really good high school goalie coach. His name was Donald Goldstein. He was number 2 all-time in saves from UMass behind Sal Acasio. So I give him all the credit in the world. Tyler knows him too really well for teaching me really how to play lacrosse versus what I was as just a raw hockey goalie that's never played before.
Yeah.
So it was initially it was a struggle, but in the end it became a strong point just because I really focused on it.
And what sort of things did he teach you? Was it like, this is how you stand, this is how you make saves, or was it something else?
He did a lot of drills with stepping. He did a lot of drills with tennis balls and the juggling that you always talk about, how that's really good hand-eye coordination. We did a lot of wall ball, and we did a lot of high to high, offside high, everything like to teach me to stand up in goal versus always have the natural instinct to go down. So he really made me into whatever goalie I became. He was responsible for it. Was 100%.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So then, you know, you kind of play in high school. I think you were mentioning that you went to the same high school as Tyler Storer, who I just did a podcast with. Maybe played behind him. Do you remember him as a teammate?
Absolutely. Tyler, you can't forget Tyler. He's one of those guys, super genuine, cares about everybody, cares about the team, and at the same time was very competitive as far as always wanted to win, always wanted us to do well. And he was a leader on our team. Absolutely. Great mentor. I have nothing but high praise for Tyler. And then to go on and play at BYU and then, like we talked about, giving back so much to the community, coaching with our old high school coach for a while, coaching our old high school now, I believe, in South Florida. So he's amazing. And then I was lucky to have him ahead of me as a goalie.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. He's a great guy. And then after high school, you went on and played collegiate lacrosse. Is that right?
I did. I played at UCF in Central Florida. So I had a couple of experiences with going either to D3 or to D1, but I wound up transferring and going to UCF to play. And I was actually a co-founder of that team. We didn't have a team until 2001. And that's when we actually only had 13 players. So that was a very good experience. If you're talking about seeing lots of shots, because we were terrible. Our very first game, we played Florida State, who at the time was really, really good. I don't know how they are now. And I had 37 saves and a loss for 16-4.
Whoa.
Yeah, I didn't believe it until I saw the stat book. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember getting pelted with shots, but 37 was like a ridiculous amount of shots I saw.
Yeah, I know. And then still 16 on the board. So like, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's a lot of shots.
it was. I enjoy that. I'm one of, I don't know if all goalies are like this, but I like the action. For example, in men's league last summer, like Owen Seawold was down, and a bunch of other like D1 kids and former D1 kids were down. And I'm like, we got real friendly over the summer. And at the last game of the season, I was like, okay, all of you guys play the starting six on the other team. I want to like, and just bring it. Like, let's just have fun.
Yeah.
And that's what I enjoy it. Like, I don't know if it's like the adrenaline rush or whatever it is, but I love games where I see tons of shots.
I think that all of the elite goalies have to love seeing shots. If you don't love seeing shots, like you're just not going to make it as a lacrosse goalie. I think. I mean, that's what we do, right? That's what we do. It's like,
it is.
You have to just see reps, and you have to see reps. And if you don't like seeing reps, then you're probably not going to make it. And if you don't like seeing reps because you're getting pinged in the shins, like I say, throw on the pads, especially during practice. I don't know what your thoughts are on protection.
My thoughts have changed. So initially, I think we're almost around the same year in college and high school, right? So when I was young and playing, it was almost frowned upon. It was more of the girls wear leg pads. And so the only thing I did was I've always worn sweatpants just because everyone I looked up to playing when I was in high school that played in college, I had sweatpants because that was like the thing, but that was the only extra padding that I had. And I do believe that it helped a little bit, especially in high school. But since then, and especially since listening to you talk about this with other goalies, I don't think there's any shame in putting on pads, especially in practice, because nothing is worse than in a warm up when your coach is like, you're not even playing a scrimmage, you're just warming up and you get pinged in like the shin or something. You're not ready for it. So I think that, it is the worst. So I think that for kids that, especially, it would be a deterrent not to use those pads, right? Because a lot of people, especially that start as young as they do, it is intimidating to get shot on, and if you don't know how it feels or what to expect. So I think that I encourage it for younger players, especially younger players, to do it, whatever they have to do to learn how to play. And then as they feel comfortable, they can take the pads off slowly and at their own pace.
100% agree. 100% agree. Yeah. You mentioned, the goalies you looked up to when you were in high school. Who were those goalies?
Jim Brown from Loyola. I don't know if you remember him. There's like a 90s guy.
Brown. I don't. Really I'll have to look him up. I don't, to be honest.
My exposure in high school was very limited. There wasn't YouTube clips or everything. So to see games, it was on ESPN2 or something. And you had to catch them live. So I only got to see like basically the playoffs of lacrosse, because they covered a lot more now, but they didn't back then. So seeing Loyola was a big one. And then, Tillman Johnson, obviously, for Virginia. And I forgot the goalie before him from Virginia, but I met him. Oh, Billy Day from UNC.
Yep.
He was a big one. I met him at Bill Pilot's goalie school, because they did one in Florida and one in Roanoke. So living in Florida, Tyler and I actually drove together up to that in high school and went to the Bill Pilot's camp together. And Billy Day was there as a coach. He was awesome. So such a funny guy. He hates when goalies do the little twist with their sticks, like they're fidgety. He was always more like
the spin it in your hands.
Yes, the spin it. He hated it at the time, and he used to make some Seinfeld reference about it, because this is like in 98 or something or 97. But he was awesome at UNC, and the goalie before in Virginia, we actually I was a big in South Florida. I had a hookup for these fake Oakleys, and I brought a bunch of them to the camp to trade for gear and stuff. Yeah. And the Virginia goalie gave me his sweatpants, that said his number and UVA. And in high school, that was the coolest thing and for me. So I looked up to a lot of guys that the limited exposure I had to lacrosse growing up in South Florida.
Yeah, love it. That's funny you mentioned the Oakleys, because I remember when we would go to the UCF is the MCLA, right? I remember we'd go to the MCLA championships, And like afterwards, like you just trade all your gear. So like, hey, I got a Cal lacrosse shirt, and I'd trade it for like a Texas A&M lacrosse shirt. And like, hey,
Yeah.
I got these Cal lacrosse shorts, and I'd trade them for like BYU shorts. Or you just like do all this bartering for different gear, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. I don't know what the fascination is. But I love it. I work out here with this kid. His name is Mitch. He went to JMU. He played long pole, but
Yeah.
he went to boys Latin in high school, and he got me some boys Latin swag, which was really cool. Because when I was in high school, they were the #1 team in the country. Like nobody beat them and like
Yeah.
West Jenny.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it is, but I was a big person to trade for gear and loved representing lacrosse in any capacity.
That's awesome. Yeah. Same here. Same here. You mentioned you started the program at UCF. How was that? Like, if someone's thinking about starting a program, like, how did you go about even doing it?
There was a kid named Brett Van Alstine, and he initially basically sent a, a blast about, hey, if you're interested in signing up for UCF Men's Lacrosse Club, we have a meeting it was in December of, I think, 2001, and show up and express your interest. And so through that meeting, we went through all of the regulations with UCF's club committees to get funding, to get everything we needed to start the program from a legality standpoint. And we only had 13 players, and one of them was very religious and didn't play on Sundays. And a lot of our games were Saturday and Sunday. So sometimes we only had 1 or 2 subs the whole game. We were very much Iron Man lacrosse.
Yeah. You guys
But
are probably, those guys are probably in pretty good shape by the end of the season, huh? Running up and down the field.
Everybody was in real good shape from running, just because A, we were a first-year team that was not great, and B, we only had 13 players. But it was definitely a learning experience. And this has been over 20 years that the program has grown so much now.
Yeah.
And lacrosse in general in Florida, like Central Florida, has really blown up like the Bernhards are from there. And so that the Lake Mary area and all of those have really brought exposure to lacrosse in Central Florida, which has reflected UCF's program as far as getting people that might not want to go D1, might just want to stay close to home and play like club lacrosse and have fun and get the college experience versus 6 a.m. practice every day and then in the afternoon, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of the MCLA. I feel like, I mean, you get good competitive lacrosse, you get the teammate experience, you get like the feeling of winning and just you get a lot of the things, but yeah, it's at the same time, then you also can have like a college experience, and you can go to the football games on Saturdays and cut loose a little bit. So yeah, it's a good option for a lot of kids.
It is. I think for anyone who wants more than just the lacrosse experience, it's a very close second, because it's still very competitive. It's not, Bush League. It's very competitive. The teams have expanded so much since I was in college. It's now almost every university, even if they have a D1 program or D2, also has a club now too. So from like California, lots of teams have grown out there that we got to play later on, and just everywhere throughout the country has expanded the MCLA, which I love. And so I'm glad that I was kind of on the ground floor with the program to see it grow to where it is now.
That's awesome. Congrats. Yeah. Yeah. I know a bunch of goalies that, I don't know if they're from Central Florida, but they're from Florida. So, I mean, I could, there's a bunch of goalies playing D1 or, just graduated that, come from Florida. So and California too. So it's cool to see, these non-hotbeds grow and see the sport grow. Just, as someone like you and me who love the sport, I think that's just awesome to see.
It is. And the beauty about Florida and California is you could play 24/7, 365. So there's no fall, and then winter season, it's sunny all the time. So there's no excuse to not be out there and playing.
Yeah. Yeah, I never played in a snow game until we went to Utah to play BYU, and then that was our first taste of a snow game, and man, that was it was cold.
That's a different experience. I had
It
a lot
totally
of
is, right?
rain. I had a lot of rain experience being in Florida, but obviously not a snow thing until college.
Yeah, love it. Cool. So after college, or I don't know if it was after college, you got really into like bodybuilding and nutrition. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So I started following bodybuilding in college and got into weightlifting and all of that. And then I competed after I graduated college in 2004 in bodybuilding. And so I really got into like what supplements you're supposed to take to do this and how they work. And that triggered in my brain something where, okay, I really am into this. How do I learn more from a formal education standpoint? And so in 2007, I decided to go back to college to get a chemistry degree
Mm.
and really learn how all these molecules work in your body and why you take creatine to build muscle, how it works, like, how does caffeine stimulate your central nervous system, all of these things. And then after graduating there, I went on to grad school at Georgia Tech, who also has an awesome lacrosse program. Shout out to Ken Lovick for being awesome. And and got my master's in biochemistry and organic chemistry from Georgia Tech, which really taught me like a new level of understanding how chemistry works. And I applied that to understanding how supplements work, breaking them down. So like how the molecule that's in the supplement actually interacts with your enzymes in your body and makes the pronounced effect. So I then started to try to get jobs in that field. And I went on to work at the University of Tampa in their human performance lab, which they do a lot of studies on supplement ingredients and weight training exercises and stuff like that. And then from there, I moved out to, I don't know if you're familiar with Blackstone Labs. They were at the time really, really big. I know they had some issues lately, but I went on to work with them and I was their chief science officer and formulated all their products moving forward. And then I really got to understand how the supplement industry works. And then in 2019, the end of 2019, I started Chemix with some partners and we started to make my own stuff, like on my own, finally, instead of, working for another company.
That's
And so
awesome.
now
And
I get to make whatever I want.
yeah,
Essentially,
yeah. And that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing right now. CEO of Chemix.
Yes.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. I follow the Guerilla Chemist online, which you guys should as well. And one of the posts that really caught my attention, you were talking about, I don't even know if I can say it right, like nootropics,
Yes.
right? And you were basically saying that nootropics, you're talking about they're a great supplement for lacrosse goalies. And so obviously I was like, bing, I got to learn more about this. And I think that's what initially prompted me to reach out to you to chat. What is a nootropic?
So a nootropic is essentially a compound that enhances brain activity through different mechanisms. So I don't consider caffeine a nootropic. It's a central nervous stimulant. So when I looked into nootropic ingredients, my focus was, okay, how do ADHD medications work? What's the pathway for these molecules that causes the effect of increased focus? Because I don't know if a lot of listeners out here in college have ever taken Adderall to study, but if you don't need to take those medications, they give you an incredible sense of focus. And the reason is your body has a certain amount of dopamine, and what Adderall does is it releases a bunch of dopamine and then inhibits it from being reuptake into your brain. So you have this sense of, you have all this stimuli in front of you that you can handle, versus people who actually need ADHD medication. They don't produce enough dopamine normally. So the reason they constantly look around like this is because they're trying to get exogenous stimuli to release dopamine, to get that rush or that feeling, to get all of the focus from that. And
Yeah.
so dopamine is called it's a monoamine, is like the subclass of what it is. And so is serotonin. And those two compounds are responsible for, you know, your mood, well-being, euphoria, and focus. So when I was looking at ingredients to make this nootropic, I wanted to see what ingredients have the same pathway, metabolic pathways, and hit the same receptors that the prescription drugs see, and see if there's anything natural that can mimic that. Because obviously there's laws on what can be supplements and what are drugs. So something has to be naturally occurring to be a supplement. So that kind of spiraled into, okay, I always testing everything on myself. So I have a really good supplier that can source different materials for my company. And so I just started really digging into papers and reading extracts or about what these obscure botanicals that have these compounds in them, how to get them, how to extract them, how to use enough of it to feel something. And one of those is something called Kana, which is big in South Africa. It's this plant that they chew over there, similarly how we chew tobacco, and it releases a bunch of serotonin. So it enhances your mood, makes you slightly euphoric, gives you just overall well-being sense, and then can increase focus and brain activity through the release of serotonin and dopamine. So that was when I figured out that supplement, I had to play around with what the doses were, and based off of what they chew in South Africa, somewhere between 500 and 1500 milligrams of the plant is what you need. So I use 1,000 milligrams in my product, and that was one of the biggest ones I found is Kana. And then, yeah, it's an interesting, like once you start looking past America and looking at all the different types of botanicals that grow all over the world, and how cultures find these things, like via just living, like they say, hey, I'm going to chew this and see what happens.
Right.
And then scientists find these papers on, do these studies and say, like, this is how this works. And so I was able to pull up papers on different materials and see how they affect focus, how they affect your brain activity.
Yeah.
You know, like we just talked about.
That's so interesting. It reminds me of like the Peruvians chew the coca leaves, right? And they probably didn't know all the science behind it, but they just, hey, chew this, and like it gives you this effect. Let me see if I can understand what you just said, not being a PhD or a master's in chemistry. So you got serotonin and dopamine levels, and I always thought that those were like, they controlled like your happiness levels, yes. But you're also saying they control focus.
Yes.
Okay. And when you go ahead.
Particularly dopamine is one of the main ones that increases focus. And that's also part of your body's reward system.
Yeah.
So whenever you get like an emotional high and you get that dopamine release that gives you that slight like euphoric feeling, that's your body rewarding yourself for whatever just happened. So you naturally will produce dopamine when you're doing something that you experiencing is like a very high emotional activity.
That part I knew. So far, so good, right? I mean, unfortunately, nowadays with the cell phones, like a lot of technology has sort of hijacked the dopamine, right? Like, I mean, I look at Instagram and I go, oh, cool, like 5 new likes, and I get a little hit. And anyway, maybe that's a whole other conversation. But coming back to this, so dopamine, like, how does it impact the focus? Like, if my dopamine levels are high, I can really concentrate on a task at hand?
Right, because your body releases dopamine as a result of some type of stimulus. So if you need an outside stimulus to release dopamine, you're constantly looking for it. But if you have high dopamine levels already, you're already focused on the one thing that you're doing. So you're not easily distracted.
Got it. Makes perfect sense. One time in college, my buddy gave me an Adderall to study and kind of told me like the impacts, and it was crazy. I mean, it was like,
yes.
I don't know if you remember your first time taking an Adderall, but like I would look down to study. I look up at the clock and it's like, whatever, 6 p.m. Look down to study, and I'm just like locked in. And I look back up and it's like 10 o'clock at night, and it feels like 15 minutes have passed.
Yes.
Right. And I'm just like, meanwhile, I've been working 4 hours of just like pure concentrated. I'm like, whoa, this stuff works.
It does. I remember in undergrad, the first time a bunch of us that were in the same chemistry and organic chemistry classes, we all studied on the weekends together. And I, in college, also worked at a nightclub. So I had to study during the day on Saturday and Sunday because I had to work Saturday night and Friday night. So the first time I would do it, I took some in the morning. And like you said, you look at the clock and it's 10 or 11 a.m. and then you're doing something and all of a sudden it's like 7 hours have gone by and you've done so much studying and you don't even realize how much you just took in.
Yeah.
So I remember at one point I did have a prescription for it from a doctor that I was able to use, but I only would take it a couple of days a month to actually when I needed to study. So it had a dramatic impact for those of you who have never taken Adderall and have no idea what we're talking about. So
yeah, and don't, by the way, if you don't have a prescription, I mean, this is just entertainment. Yeah, you know how it goes. The disclaimers coming in right now. So don't take it. So then the nootropics, what you're saying is they imitate that effect that Adderall has. Probably not as like potent, but a lot of the same things going on.
Yeah. So if the chemical structure of Adderall, like every molecule has its own structure, right? So the way that things work is that the shape of the molecule has an effect on where it binds in the body, and there's an enzyme that receives it. So it's kind of like a lock and key type of thing.
Yeah.
So the molecule of amphetamine which is Adderall, is very similar to a naturally occurring compound called phenylalanine, which is an amino acid. And through manipulating that molecule, or I'm sorry, nature actually manipulated the molecule. So there's different derivatives of this phenylethylamine, which is very similar in structure to Adderall. So it can mimic to an extent, it binds to the same receptors and has the same effect or partial effect. You get some of it. It's obviously not as strong as the pharmaceutical, but it binds to the same receptors. So me as a chemist can look at the molecule and say, okay, this is the part that is soluble in water. This is the part that's soluble in fat. This is how it fits in the enzyme. How can we make it get into your system and get across your blood-brain barrier, which is mostly fat-soluble stuff. But fat-soluble things are hard to get into your system orally. So delivery systems have been a challenge as far as getting things into your body at a decent rate of absorption and bioavailability. So then you look at a molecule and you say, okay, this has the same properties that I think it will elicit the same effect. And then you either look up a study and showing that it does, in fact, confirm that, or some of the things I based off of research and then try myself and say, okay, this has a very strong effect. This has a very little effect. What's the right dose to use on these things? And how can I amplify the effects to get the desired focus for lacrosse example?
Yeah. Interesting. So how does then the nootropic help a lacrosse goalie? Because I with my experience with the Adderall, like I'm very focused on I don't know, like a math problem set. That's very different than saving an 85-mile-an-hour shot, right? Does it help with the reaction, or does it just help me stay like focused on the ball in the stick, and then I can pick it up a little bit better?
I think it heightens your awareness a lot. So in turn makes you hyper active of things that are coming at you, and that results in you having an extreme focus on whatever you're doing. So I have found that taking a nootropic and then playing goalie, I was able to track the ball much better and stay focused on the ball and see shots more clearly and react, I think, more efficiently versus not. And a lot of people, like I said before, caffeine isn't really a nootropic. A lot of people take caffeine because it gives you like energy, but it doesn't elicit the same effect as these nootropics do. That it's a different mechanism inside your brain. And so I really do think that as a lacrosse goalie or even a lacrosse player in general, it can heighten your sense of like following the ball or getting a pass or shooting. You're incredibly focused on what you're doing.
Yeah. And again, not medical advice. See a doctor if you're going to do it, all that good stuff. But is it one of those things where, because when you drink a lot of like coffee or maybe you have a Red Bull, like your heart kind of speeds up a little bit, you know what I mean? And then that can get a little bit dangerous, I think, especially as a goalie, right? Because, or even as any athlete, then you're running around. Does the nootropics have that effect?
Some of them do, but most of them do not. And that's what kind of separates the things like caffeine, which stimulate your central nervous system, versus the things that stimulate your brain to release dopamine, release serotonin, increase oxygen intake, which cause parts of your brain to communicate with each other that normally wouldn't. So your brain is kind of functioning at a faster pace. So it's different than just accelerating your entire body. So you don't get the jittery effect that you get from, like you said, a Red Bull, which has, I think, 200 milligrams or something of caffeine, which is what's causing that. And so these compounds that I've looked into are more about how it affects your brain and not so much how it affects your nervous system.
Interesting. So you can't just grab any nootropic and think that they're all going to be the same, because a lot of them have different ingredients.
Right.
Yeah.
So my product specifically, I don't know if you could see this.
Let's
is
see.
a nootropic. And so I used, when I set out to make this product, like I said, I tried to find what things mimic how the prescription ADHD medications, how like SSRIs work, like selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, like for mood enhancement, and how these compounds affect your brain motility, and how much oxygen is getting into your brain, and communication, all these little factors that when you mix them all together, create this one really strong effect of intense focus, and you're in a really good mood, and it can heighten your sense of euphoria.
Interesting. Just like a save.
Yes, it's exactly. You're amplifying your save. So you're getting double the dopamine hit.
Double the dopamine hit. If someone was going to try one, and again, we're not saying you should, but if they were going to, is there a certain age you should really be, or is this safe for any age?
So most supplements that are sold in the stores or online are recommended 18 or over. There are some ingredients that can be considered so regulation is called GRAS, which is generally recognized as safe, GRAS. Okay. And so those ingredients can be used at younger ages. Some of the ingredients, like the ones I've used, are strong stimulants, so that it might be too much for somebody who has never taken anything before. And as a younger, I would think that the doses for somebody younger would be lower than the dose that I recommend for somebody who's 18 or older.
What dose do you recommend? Is it just one of the pills?
So my pill is 8 capsules as a full serving, just because it's a lot of material. Like I used 1,000 milligrams of Kana, 1,000 milligrams of ivy leaf extract, which is, once you release all the dopamine and serotonin, how do you prevent it from breaking down? You have enzymes that want to break down everything that comes into your body because it sees it as foreign, right? So how do you prevent the breakdown of these compounds? And so ivy leaf, I came across a study that showed that it prevented the breakdown significantly of dopamine, serotonin, and adrenaline. So when you take this particular extract, all of your senses are heightened and your adrenaline is higher than normal. So that also increases the focus. And so I just have a lot of material overall in the product. That's why it was 8 capsules, but it really just depends on the ingredient, and what the dose is. Because some things are as little as 5 milligrams is enough to have a crazy effect. Actually, there's an ingredient in here that's in micrograms, which is 10 to the -6 grams. And so that's 1,000th of a milligram.
Oh, wow.
So
just a little,
yeah,
just a little sprinkle.
Yep, exactly. but
Yeah,
it's a
that's
but the
awesome.
ingredient works really well for the other part of the nootropic I haven't talked about is acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter that causes your body to be awake and alert.
Mhm.
And so the this this compound that I use in such a very small dose is an inhibitor of the enzyme that breaks down acetylcholase. So you have more free acetylcholine in your brain, which creates a more heightened awareness and alertness factor.
Yeah. Wow. I could
Does that
just,
make sense?
I, yeah.
Like,
I mean, at a
oh,
very
okay.
high level, I mean, I don't get it, I don't have the same passion for chemistry that you have, which I love. It's so awesome to hear you talk about it. I could just imagine you going on this, like just going in the rabbit hole, of like doing
Yes,
all this research. And then next thing you know, you're like, bam, Kana, guys, Kana. That's it.
yes.
And then like, I don't know, did you go to South Africa or like, how do you go about
No.
procuring this thing that's over there?
So my manufacturing facility is one of my partners for Chemex, and they are able to source almost anything that I ask for. They deal with different vendors that have representatives worldwide, that like ingredients that are made in China or made in India or not, like, or naturally occurring, I mean, in India or China or South Africa, and
Yeah.
they gather these botanicals and then they're manufactured, and then that vendor is in contact with my supplier and said, hey, I can get this for you, this is how much it is, this is, and then they send a certificate of authorization or authenticity, like a C of A,
Mm-hmm.
showing that this supplement is guaranteed for this percentage of the active ingredient that you're looking for.
Wow.
Or it's a 10-to-1 extract or 5-to-1 extract, meaning like for every 5 kilograms you get 1 kilogram of active material, kind of thing.
Yeah. And what is Kana? Is it a root? Is it a leaf? What exactly is it?
It's a leaf.
It's a
It's a
leaf.
part of a plant. Yeah.
Yep.
So they take these and they chew them, and they, through getting absorbed mostly through like your glands in your lip and your mouth, I mean, then that's what gives you the same effect like chewing tobacco does, how it
Sure.
increases the nicotine. This one just increases your serotonin and dopamine levels.
I love it. Well, thank you for going the rabbit hole on this show. I think that's as technical as we've ever gotten in the organic chemistry realm. But that was awesome.
I do.
Sticking. Go ahead.
Sorry, just to, so if anyone wants to see like more of this, or even like I have a visual board that I make these whiteboard videos
Mm.
specifically talking about all this stuff. So if they were interested in learning like exact or understanding more what I'm talking about, I actually have a visual board where I draw the molecules, explain how they work, show the part of the molecule that binds to which part, and how it goes. So I have I have a video on every product I've ever made on a whiteboard. So if someone wants to see those, you can either YouTube search it or I post them on my Instagram.
That's amazing. That's
So
amazing.
that's a better, I know visual tools help out a lot. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
someone were interested, that's another resource they have.
Yeah. But even just like, I don't know of any other company that takes that level of like care and time to like explain every single product and the molecules behind it. That's cool. That's cool. Hopefully we inspire at least one goalie listening to this to be a chemist, to be an organic, to major in organic chemistry. That would be a win. That would be a win for me, and I'm
That
sure
would
for
be a
you as
huge
well.
win.
Love it. Sticking with supplements, are there other supplements that you think athletes in general, or more specifically lacrosse goalies, would benefit from?
Yes, for sure. So usually every program has some type of weightlifting regimen. And so there are enough natural supplements that can help build muscle, burn fat, increase, aerobic activity, higher levels of oxygen in your blood, stuff like that. All of that can cause you to have a better performance on the field and
Mm-hmm.
more athletic ability. So like you can run longer because you have more oxygenated blood in your system, stuff like that. So there's mushrooms have not those mushrooms, but mushrooms in general have a lot of compounds that can help with oxygenation. And are you familiar with the term what a free radical is? Have you heard that term before? Or antioxidants, like how you take antioxidants like vitamin C?
Yeah, I've taken vitamin C.
Okay. so sorry if we're getting a little technical, but like things that are free radicals are basically things that can break down cells, and that affects you mentally and physically. So a lot of supplements have antioxidants which prevent that from happening. So they bind with the free radical, and then it doesn't deteriorate your cell, which then gives you more energy to run longer or to focus better.
Okay. What are we talking about specific? Yeah. What, like creatine, like what specifically do you think adults 18 and up should look at?
Creatine is something that increases your production of adenosine triphosphate, which is ATP, which is your body's energy currency.
Mm-hmm.
So the way creatine works is it increases the production of that energy that your body runs off of. And so in turn, you can lift more weights or run faster or longer because you have more of the energy currency that your body runs on.
Oh, got it.
So
okay.
Creatine also brings water into your cells. It's a very good hydrator. And when your cells are really hydrated, that's when you can increase muscle performance. There was a study that showed as little as 2% dehydration can decrease performance by over 20%. So
Wow.
that's a huge amount of performance you're missing out on if you're not hydrated properly.
Yeah.
So creatine can do that, which I think has a very pronounced effect on training, running, lifting weights, any of those things.
Yeah. I remember you and I are about the same age. I graduated high school in 1999 and creatine like came out and there was like, that was kind of like the time it came out, and it was, the big, I mean, there was all the benefits that they listed, just like you said, but the big thing was, well, there's no studies. There hasn't been any studies on it because it just came out. Right. And here we are 23 years later, and it's probably, correct me if I'm wrong, the most studied supplement, and everything that they have come out in these studies have been nothing but positive. Am I right?
100%. It is the most studied and proven ingredient to help with performance.
Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, good thing I started back in 99. I was just way ahead of the curve on that one.
We were the guinea pigs of creatine.
Yeah. What's funny is bodybuilders tend to be the guinea pigs of supplements, right? Like a lot of bodybuilders end up using a supplement like way before like doctors end up recommending that supplement to someone else for another reason, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So bodybuilding is an extreme sport, right? So the mentality of a bodybuilder is very extreme. What are the limits I can take my body to? How can I get there? How can I build muscle faster? How can I burn as much fat to be as lean as possible? So having that mentality kind of, in my opinion, inhibits some of your caution for trying something new. Mm-hmm. And so have been people in the past that some are chemists. Like the person that inspired me to go to school was Patrick Arnold, who was one of the only chemists, I believe, in the supplement industry. He was responsible for bringing Andro to the market, if you remember that supplement.
I heard
the one
of it.
That Mark McGuire, like
yeah. Like a steroid, right? Performance enhancing. That
it wasn't. It technically is a steroid, but it wasn't considered one at the time because it was naturally occurring.
Got it.
So yeah, it was like a cheat code type of thing. But yeah, he was a chemist, and he was one of the guys that you're talking about, like on the forefront of like trying new things and trying them on yourself, and then giving them to bodybuilders. Say, hey, take this, you'll work out, for 3 hours instead of 1 hour or something like that, or take this and it will burn more fat than you normally would with just diet and exercise. So he's one of those guys that was looking always at the extreme, like what's the next big thing, and he's brought more new novel ingredients and products to the market than anyone, and I'm trying to follow him on. I mean, like the legalities have changed since his day of the early 2000s to regulations, so that's why it's even harder to find stuff that actually works, because like Andro works on everybody. It's like a testosterone, it's similar to testosterone in action. So it is kind of like almost taking steroids, but now you can't have any of those. So what you have to find something else that's naturally occurring that works really well.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. So creatine, thumbs up.
Yes. Creatine's good.
Creatine, thumbs up. Any others come to mind that goalies could see some positive effects?
So glycerol is something that keeps you hydrated, and they make glycerol powders. Like they're usually about 50% material. So that's something that keeps you hydrated throughout a game, which can really help, with your performance. And then I personally like, there's a mushroom extract called Peak O2, like O2 is in oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a blend of 6 different mushrooms that all have increased effect on your performance by allowing you to increase oxygen levels to your brain, to your blood, through your blood, throughout your body, as well as increase your power that you can put out and increase the amount of repetitions you can do for whether it's running or lifting weights. So I really like that ingredient, Pico 2, a lot. I think that's something that's safe. It's all made from mushrooms that you can buy at the store. So there's nothing.
Yeah, you were talking about the benefits of mushrooms earlier, not the magic ones, the normal ones.
The magic ones is a whole different story of benefits. But I've made posts on that before, and that's actually a very hot topic in the medical community now.
Yeah. I listen to a lot of Tim Ferriss, and he's been talking a lot about the microdosing for like PTSD, and the benefits that they're seeing of just getting over trauma. But anyway, I'm not Tim Ferriss, and you can go listen to those. I'm sure if you Google that, if you're interested, you can check it out. Is glycerol, is that the same as glycerine?
Yes. So glycerin is a liquid that you could buy at the grocery store or like a CVS or something. Yeah. And that works the same way. The glycerol powder is that glycerin on a carrier, like silica usually or something. So that's how you can make it into a powder, because most supplements are powder, not liquid.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's the same.
And that one really helps with sleep too, right?
I haven't seen a study on sleep with glycerol. Okay. I will say that it helps prevent hangovers because you are completely hydrated. So I always talk to, like in college, I would tell my friends, here, after you go out drinking, take this glycerol and drink it with a bottle of water, and you'll feel better in the morning because you'll be hydrated. Because part of being hungover is dehydration. That's why why you feel shitty.
There you go. Well, that could be a good tip for a college kid.
Yes.
Love it. Any supplements that come to mind for you that are pretty popular that you're just like, no, that you don't take that. That doesn't do anything?
Yes. So beta alanine is an amino acid, and it's a hugely popular supplement. And the study, or the thought process, is that beta alanine and a naturally occurring amino acid in your body come together to form a molecule called carnosine, and that can increase endurance. So people take beta alanine as a way to increase their levels of this carnosine, which increases their ability to do performance for and endurance. It's a very popular ingredient, but for the wrong reason. It's popular because it gives you the tingles. It's called paresthesia. And so it's basically the nerves on the top of your skin like start to get really excited, and you get this whole flush tingling feeling, which I personally hate, but it has been equated to, I can feel this working, right? So when people feel it, they equate that to results. So I personally am not a fan of this ingredient. I don't think that there's a whole lot of data to back it up. You have to take a lot of it over time for it to work. And it's a very popular ingredient in a lot of pre-workout.
I was just going to say, I when I experienced that feeling, I took some of my sister's pre-workout one time and then rode my bike to the gym. And when I got there, it was like, it was just tingling. And I'm like, I do not like this feeling. Like, this is not comfortable.
I know. I hate it. Like your ears start to burn and you feel flushed. And so it's an ingredient that's popular for that reason, but not really an effective ingredient the way it's being used.
Love that makes sense. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Bryan, thank you so much for coming back on and kind of rehashing this. That was tons of fun. Where should people go if they're interested in checking you out, checking out the supplements?
So Chemix is my company, which is the website is chemixlifestyle.com. All of the products have descriptions that I've written based on studies and have all the references that you can go and look up the study yourself, as well as somewhere between a 5 and 10 minute long video of me drawing the molecules and explaining why I picked this ingredient, how it works, all that stuff. All that is on the website. All those are on YouTube as well. And then my Instagram handle at the Guerilla Chemist with 2 R's and 2 L's, like guerrilla warfare. I post all those videos that I have. They're all in my story and in my posts. And then I do a thing called Molecule Monday, which every Monday I break down a new molecule and explain it, how it works, why you should take it, how much you take, stuff like that.
All right. You're offering a little PhD in chemistry yourself right on that page, huh?
So the most rewarding thing that has happened from me doing this is I get messages saying, you inspired me to go back to school or to change my major to chemistry, which is what happened to me. So that was like the main driver on why I do this, is if I can get people interested in science, because most people aren't. If I can get people interested in science via their application of it. So like my application was bodybuilding and then lacrosse. So if I can get people that normally don't pay attention to chemistry at all to see that, oh, this is all chemistry that I'm doing without even realizing it, then it's a really good connect on putting those two pieces together.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, really good work that you're doing. Keep it up. What is the story behind the Guerilla Chemist? How come you went with that name?
I wanted to use gorilla if you see my logo, it's an actual gorilla in a lab coat with gloves and goggles and that kind of thing, like a muscular gorilla. So people get that image in their head. And then the gorilla as in like underground, kind of that sort of secret, not sure what's going on kind of thing, like a guerrilla lab or like a guerrilla warfare, that kind of thing. So that was the play on it. And I didn't start that until 2015. And then because when I was at University of Tampa, my boss, who was Jacob Wilson, he's like, you need to get on Instagram to show people what this is. And this, like I said, this is 2014 or 15. So it wasn't as huge as it is now where everybody's on Instagram and YouTube. Yeah. He was the one that's like, you got to start sharing this. And so I came up with that name during my time there in Tampa and then just went with it.
Love it. Love it. Well, check it out. I'll link up to this when this comes out. This next question, I actually do remember the answer to from our first interview, but I'm hoping you could tell the story again. I got to ask about the hair. Tell us about the hair.
Okay. So one, growing up in the 90s as a kid, loved punk rock music, loved Kurt Cobain is one of my idols. And a big thing was dyeing your hair to like express yourself as like the anti-culture kind of thing, right? Or counterculture. So when I was a kid, we used to like kind of use Sun In. You remember Sun In?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Hydrogen peroxide. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we would
to lighten your hair.
Exactly. And then we would use food coloring to dye it. So like that was us as 12-year-old kids trying to be cool. But then everything changed in 1996 when my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. So then I started dyeing my hair pink in October to like kind of try and heighten breast cancer awareness and breast cancer research. And every year since then, I have dyed my hair pink every October. My wedding was in October. And I told my wife, I'm not compromising on this. My hair will be pink. It doesn't have to be super bright pink like it is, but it will be pink in October for our wedding. So and my mom is cancer-free, which is awesome. Oh, and my sister went through the same experience and she's now cancer-free.
Wow.
So that's the main reason why I do the pink is for breast cancer awareness. And the rest of it, like this, is just my way of expressing myself. And I'm lucky enough to be my own boss, and no one can say you have to look like a certain way to do your job. So that's why I do it, just because it's something that is important to me for various reasons. But my mom was a big one.
Yeah. Love that. Thank you for sharing that again. And you look good. You look good. Bryan, thank you so much for coming on the show. That was tons of fun.
Thank you for having me, Damon. I really appreciate it. I love what you're doing with the sport, getting goalies out there, getting exposure of everybody. I really, really love what you're doing. Thank you for doing it.